So thank you everyone for the audience. And today we have the pleasure to receive here Professor Jérôme, from University of Lyon. I don't know how to pronounce science, Po Lyon. Is that right? Po Lyon. And also Leo Rivelli. Is that right to say, Leo? Sorry about my accent, yeah? So, and today we have the pleasure to receive both of you here in the USP COFECUB project. It's about complementary currencies. And Professor Jérôme is going to do the seminar about alternative and complementary currencies as instances of monetary plurality. And thank you very much for being here. And so it's your room.
Thank you. So thank you first for inviting us to give this talk. And we shared the time with Leo, and I will have first a quite general presentation of alternative and complementary currencies, which are seen here as instances of monetary plurality. So I'm going to explain this, of course. And maybe as a first point, I would like to present the general topic of monetary plurality with the specific cases of alternative and complementary currencies. With regards to terms, first, we see in the literature that there is a long-standing discussion about terms, not really knowing how to name things. We can notably find in English the term alternative currency, community currencies, complementary currencies, or also social currencies. In Brazil, it's notably more social currencies. In France, we talk of complementary local currencies. There are many more or less important differences between that. But I will use in this presentation the two terms of alternative and complementary currencies, trying to delineate a difference between both. The first one is about alternative currencies, and this refers to types of currencies which are implemented to prompt socioeconomic changes. This can include purposes of increased financial inclusion, fighting against poverty, strengthening local economies, prompting ecological transition, developing commons in a given neighborhood, or sometimes higher competition in the society. And the other term is complementary currencies. And in that case, I think that we can relate this to currencies which are implemented as add-on to the pre-existing payment system in order to promote certain type of actions. And in this second case, we notably have rewarding currencies, as we are going to see in this presentation and the other presentation from Leo Rivelli. All these things have generated a kind of dynamic since the years 80s, which contributed to what the anthropologist Bill Moher called the Cambrian explosion of payments, which meant in his mind the extraordinary situation in which we are today of permanent innovation and permanent birth of new ways of paying, new ways of counting with monetary schemes and payment schemes. So now, what about monetary plurality? The term recently arose as a research field with the terminology monetary plurality. And this is an attempt to understand the variety of all money which can be in use in every society at one time, generally speaking, from an institutionalist approach. And this led notably to this book edited by Georgina Gomez in 2019, which title is Monetary Plurality in Local, Regional, and Global Economies. And another book, but written in French only, is going to be published this year, edited by me and my colleague Bruno Terret, La monnaie entre unicité et pluralité, Money Between Unity and Plurality, empirical and theoretical explorations. So there are, of course, these are just two references, but there are many works today on this topic. And this research field reinterprets pre-existing works on currency competition, which are well known since more than decades, maybe centuries, but also complementary currencies and alternative currencies. What am I going to talk about? Things that relate to a coexistence of a plurality of monetary tools, which means possibly a plurality of means of payment, plurality of units of account, and this can be in or out of the monetary system, which is built by the sovereign authority. In the book with Bruno Terret, we delineate, we make the difference between three types of monetary plurality, and I'm going to just show them briefly in order to articulate the alternative and complementary currencies. So we think that there are three main categories of monetary plurality. One is an institutionalized plurality. This is the fact that our present-day monetary systems, national monetary systems, gather actually a number of various actors which have monetary rights to issue money, like banks and central banks, but also monetary rights to organize the payments, like things like Apple Pay and PayPal and others. We also have what we call here a transitory plurality, which means here that we may find in various situations schemes, monetary schemes, which are built as answer to pressing needs and wants. And especially during wars, we have situations in which money is lacking, and so people just create new currencies in order to face their basic ordinary daily needs. But we also have a transformative plurality, and here the monetary schemes which are built are rather answers to aspirations to change, aspirations to incremental or radical change. So in that case, and we find alternative currencies, especially in this place, in that case, we create new monies, new currencies in order to prompt changes, not in order to face ordinary needs, but to prompt changes. If we have a look at this in dynamics, we see that the transitory plurality, as far as it is transitory, should disappear when we go back to normality. But there is also the risk of institutionalization of schemes that should be transitory and that eventually are not. If we have a look at the transformative plurality, then the point here is that in order to be effective, in order to prompt real changes, these schemes should leave the marginality in order to be effective and so create the changes it attempts. And this leads to two things, two possibilities. Either the transformative projects disappear when they, either because they fail or because they succeed, or they get institutionalized, so they are integrated in the institutionalized plurality, by changing the monetary compromise. So now I'm going to be a bit more detailed or concrete with a few cases. So about transitory plurality, we can talk about the case of the Great Depression in the USA, where there were hundreds of local schemes which emerged during that period due to currency shortage. But more recently, we have seen in France and Belgium a few COVID-19 monetary initiatives that were implemented just for that period by often by pre-existing local currency initiatives. In the case of institutionalized plurality, maybe we can put here the case of the municipal currencies in Brazil, as far as they come from one of the levels of the federal organization of the country, the municipalities. And in the transformative plurality, we can talk of the various cases, the many cases of LETS, local exchange and trading systems. I'm going to have some words about time banks, but also various cases of local currencies throughout the world, which are built by people at their own level in order to prompt some kind of change. And of course, we can identify mixes and shifts, changes in this kind of from this table, which may be a bit static, but we can dynamize this, of course. Now, second point, if we focus on alternative currencies and complementary currencies, actually. So what are they? Why do we talk of, why do we use this term, and what are they? They are currencies first, because they serve to account debts and to pay. They are schemes which are built in order to orientate the users of the members, of the people. For example, local currencies orientate the monetary use of the people in the local neighborhood, avoiding the flight of money outside the neighborhood. They are, mostly speaking, social innovations, not necessarily technological, but at first social innovations built by groups of people in order to serve social local needs and so on. They mostly are associations, so they come from non-profit organizations. They are not built by banks or by governments, even if there can be partnerships at some point with banks and more frequently with governments. They also are alternatives because they often carry a social critique and a socio-economic transformative project. This makes them often, hence the term alternative, often a political project at the local level. They are also territorial because often developed for small areas as living places. They are not always, but often related to solidarity finance, especially in Brazil and far less in France, for example. So they are, in that case, linked to funding under solidarity conditions. And we see that they are increasingly tools for public policies in order to develop some kind of fight against poverty or developing the local economy and so on. In order to understand these dynamics and this diversity, I'm going to show you the development throughout the time of these systems by making a difference between seven groups of alternative and complementary currencies. And I will make the difference between things that are related only, that are purported to individuals, others which are purported to businesses only, and others which are purported to both. And then we have various kinds of issuing systems. in the history, the contemporary history of alternative and complementary currencies, we see first the birth of local exchange and trading systems, which are born in Canada, Western Canada, and then spread over the world, in the English-speaking world first and in other countries. Let's a first group which uses the principle of mutual credit between the members of the group, which means that basically each one gets an account with a zero, and then exchanges leads to provide debits and credits of course, in every account of the members. And this is a kind of inconvertible scheme. So there is no easy way or no way at all to exchange let's unit of account with, for example, the real, the euro, and so on. Then in this history, we find the development of time banks, with the case of the time dollar in the USA, which actually was not the first one, because we had already experiences in Japan in the 70s, but seemingly without connection with what came after in the USA and in other countries like the UK, the Quebec, and so on. The time banks are schemes that mostly work as mutual credit, but sometimes not. But say mostly, this is mostly mutual credit, inconvertible, and it is used only for services, not for exchanging goods, just exchanging services. And the price, actually this is not market price, so the amount of money to be paid is related to the time spent to produce the services. For example, helping an old lady to buy things in a shop. So this can be a kind of service provided through this kind of time bank scheme. Then, during the 80s, we see the development of a third group, which is still inconvertible, but which is no more formally mutual credit. The biggest example was the case of the trueque in Argentina, which developed at the end of the 90s. These are inconvertible local currencies, which are issued as lump sum, which means that someone, when he or she becomes a member of the scheme, receives an amount in the local currency, which can be used to exchange in, for example, in some markets, ferias, and so on. The trueque was really the biggest case so far, which millions of people around the big crisis of Argentina in 2002. And then comes the fourth group, which is what we mostly know today in Brazil and in France. So this fourth group started not really with the palmas in Brazil. It started a bit before in Canada, but the palmas was for most probably the most prominent case. And then we had dynamics in Germany, some kind of smaller dynamics in the USA, dynamics in France, and so on, in Spain. And we have here Mumbuca and Grama, which are two convertible local currencies backed by the official currency. So with a controlled convertibility, and in these two cases, contrary to the previous ones, the Grama and the Mumbuca, this does not come from the people, but from municipalities, which are implementing these schemes. So we can have this kind of scheme implemented not only by the people, but also by municipalities. Then a fifth group about rewarding currencies. Actually, I just give two examples here. the new in Netherlands and the sol in France a bit later. But today there are many experiments and many projects with regards to rewarding currencies, and maybe Leo will talk a bit about that later. Rewarding currencies means that people get a kind of purchasing power in a specific local currency, which can be used in a limited network of providers to get goods and services. It's almost finished. The sixth group is about inter-enterprises mutual credit. So that's almost the same as Let's, but this is for small and medium businesses. And the biggest example so far is the case of the Sardex in Italy, in which we have several thousands of small and medium enterprises in the island of Sardinia, which use this kind of scheme, which help them avoid using the euro. So this is a matter of getting easily a kind of credit that can be used within the network, and then avoiding the expense of euros. And the last one is the group of cryptocurrencies, which of course started with the Bitcoin in 2009. But here I just put one condition: cryptocurrencies as far as they are used as currencies, because we have millions actually of cryptocurrencies today, and there are very few which are not only used as currencies, but also built in order to be used as currencies. This was the case of the Bitcoin. Of course, it also serves to other purposes today, but that's important because in the beginning, the Bitcoin was really produced, really thought by its founder as a way to provide a new money to the people. So this was really a monetary project. Today, it's not anymore, or it's not specifically a monetary project because it serves many different purposes. What I would like to add is that the birth of this seventh group led to reshape the initiatives in other groups of experiences. And so what came with cryptocurrencies was the technology of blockchain. And by the way, the technology of blockchain could be used in other cases. So for example, in Argentina, the project of Moneda Par, which was born at the end of the 2010s, was built based on a blockchain, but of course not a Bitcoin one. It was different. And the Moneda Par was at first the project of the group 6, Inter-Enterprise Mutual Credit, but soon became a group 3 case with convertible local currency issued as a lump sum. In France, we also have a local currency which has built a digital scheme based on the blockchain. And we also have in the group 5 the case of the plastic bank. Maybe you will talk about, I don't know. Yeah, so something close to that. The plastic bank is a case of group 5 based on a cryptocurrency. So this kind of graph or figure helps identify the variety and the dynamics of the alternative and complementary currencies since the 80s. And this helps see the transformation of all that. Here I show you a graph with the evolution of the number of schemes by 2017. After then, I don't have relevant figures. And we can see here the high number of Let's, group 1, then the high number of group 2, Bancos de Tempo, then the surge of the group 3 during the crisis in Argentina, and then the collapse of that. And here, the birth of local currencies, of group 4. If we make a focus on this group 4, we can have a look at the French and Brazilian cases, which are the most important today. So in blue, you've got the line, incomplete line of the number of community development banks and municipal development banks that have been launched throughout the time. And so today we are today it's something like 180, I think, but we stop at 2021. And at that time in France, we had 71 cases of local currencies, which is quite big for the country. So a few concluding remarks after this very general presentation. We find in all these experiences various things, very different ones, but we can identify notably the case of challenging the notion of value. You've got here the picture of a note in France, a note in a place close to Lyon, actually, whose currency was named the mesure, like the medida, the measure, something which can help measure things. And of course, this is a bit strange because there is a zero. So with this one, you cannot do anything but discussing. So this is a matter of introducing the discussion about what makes value, what is wealth, what makes value, and how could we measure things. So in several cases, in many cases actually of alternative and complementary currencies, there is this kind of challenge about the notion of value. In some cases, time can be taken as the basis for evaluating. In other cases, maybe the same, we try to value what is usually non-monetary, social cohesion, community ties, and so on. Valuing but not marketing or marketizing. It's something different, providing a monetary value without putting this on the market. We also find in many cases the purpose of increasing social justice or implementing social justice in exchange practices, notably when we use the unit of value as time. And then we can see maybe some kind of shift from, or maybe not shift, but a kind of play on the words between value and values, between market value and social values. So what economic or market value, maybe economic value in general, are associated to social values. Other point, it's often a matter of promoting empowerment, promoting commons and participation. And here you've got another picture of another currency in France, the real in Brittany, with five units, and you see 5 hands on each side. So this is a matter of exchanging, of course, and exchanging by giving one's hand. So this is also, it's not a matter of self-interest. This is a matter of creating and promoting social ties, social cohesion. And so this is also a matter of providing a kind of democracy through solidarity in the community. This can lead to talking about money commons or monetary commons, which means here that they built schemes which are considered as commons, managed and thought by people who gather on these projects. And so this can lead to the empowerment of people and communities. So 2 last things. All this means that money is not anymore the exclusive field of expertise of experts and financial institutions, because it's seized by many actors, including grassroots people. And by the way, we see that on the long run, evidence show that the success requires long-standing work and efforts, which means that these schemes may be numerous to be created, but they often struggle for life. Maybe they don't last very long because they are built by people who are mostly volunteers and who share social values, maybe sometimes political purposes, which is not the same as private interest action, of course. I will stop here and maybe, sorry, Leo, if I was too long. I think I was a bit long. I need.
So yes, maybe. So thank you, Jérôme, for the presentation, and I will focus on one type of complementary currencies. But by the way, we can discuss if these are complementary or alternative currencies depending on the example. So I will develop a bit on environmental complementary currencies following Jérôme's presentation. So yes, that's the topic of my PhD. So environmental or green complementary currencies. So yes, so these are defined as complementary currencies that target that aim to address specific environmental issues. Thank you. So yes, we call them environmental, but we can also call them green complementary currencies, and these are specifically designed to address environmental issues as one of their primary objectives. But in fact, they can also pursue some economic or social objectives simultaneously. So I try to conduct a systematic review of the research on environmental complementary currencies in my paper of 2026, and I will take some example that I see during this work. So broadly, we have two categories of environmental complementary currencies: rewarding complementary currencies and non-rewarding environmental complementary currencies. So rewarding one can be obtained as a reward for pro-environmental behaviors, for instance, while non-rewarding environmental complementary currencies can be obtained through exchange or by converting unit of national currency into a unit of environmental complementary currencies. So they may generate different effects. So the principal ones are substitution effects. So it's when people, because they use currencies, start adopting more green or environmentally friendly consumption pattern, so that they substitute some environmentally harmful purchased by green ones due to the use of the currency. We have localization effects. So when people substitute some non-local purchase by local purchases because they use the currency, so that's an effect that pertains with local currency. We can have some spillover effects too, is when people start using a currency and then adopt behaviors that are not directly incentivized by the use of the currency, but that depend on the way that people appropriate the use of the currency. They may also generate some knowledge and awareness effects. So people, when they start using some environmental complementary currencies, can increase their level of knowledge and awareness. So these are the positive effects, but we can have some negative effects in some ways of ECCs. So especially rebound effect is when, for instance, people get some reward in complementary currency units, but they spend this reward in products that generate more environmental harm than the pro-environmental behaviors that have been implemented to obtain the reward. So at the end, we have more environmental harm than benefits due to the use of the currency. So I will take some example. of these currencies. So first, I will focus on the éco-millage. So that's a rewarding currency as defined by Jérôme. So I take this case as example because the audience, the number of participants involved in this currency is very important. So we have in 2015 1.72 million participants. So in fact, the number of active participants is a bit lower, but they distribute about 3 million euros of reward. So that was a currency that was managed by the municipality of Seoul. And so people have to register on an online website. They have to communicate their personal information and some information about their electricity meter. And so then the municipality compare their consumption of electricity over time. And so if they reduce their consumption of electricity from one period to another, they get some rewards in points, so in éco-millage points that are proportional to the electricity, the amount of electricity saved. And so then users can use this currency to purchase specific environmentally friendly and energy efficient products that are provided by the municipality. So they cannot spend these points in specific businesses, only in the city hall, I think, to purchase specific businesses products, and they can convert the points into a unit of national currency. So in fact, when people buy some green products with the points, the currency tend to generate some substitution effects. It allows some people to discover new green products, and thus they may replace some environmentally harmful consumption by green consumption. But when people convert the point into unit of national currency, the scheme can generate some rebound effects, as we cannot earmark anymore their spending. So for instance, they can consume with unit of national currency that they convert from the point they have some environmentally harmful products that generate more environmental harm than the energy saving they made to obtain the points. So we have some example of these currencies in France. For instance, the sauvage currency, monnaie sauvage, is so we can discuss if it's more a currency or a coupon voucher, but in fact, this is the same monetary design. And in Brazil, maybe the Pila Verde have the same design. So one currency that is also interesting is the solar coin. So that's a type of hybrid scheme between the cryptocurrency and the rewarding scheme. So I will briefly speak about it just for you to know this case, but people can earn as a reward for solar energy production some solar coin. And so then at the beginning it was designed to be a currency, but because this is a cryptocurrency, they do not succeed in building a network of businesses that accept payment in solar coin. And so at the end, this is more an asset than a currency. People that get this currency tend to sell it on some markets to get unit of national currency. So it is designed to incentivize energy production. So people have to register on an energy monitoring platform, and for each kilowatt-hour of solar energy produced, they can obtain a solar coin. But this is not likely to incentivize people to purchase, to construct solar panel, because the reward is very low. So in fact, we have a kind of windfall effect. People are rewarded for something they would have done without the reward. And so similarly, this can generate some rebound. So people have an additional purchasing power that they will not have obtained or spent without the currency. So then an interesting case of environmental complementary currency is le lien, the link in English, in French, sorry. So le lien means the link in French. And so this is a local currency that circulates in 7/1. So you have some bills of this currency, but in fact today most transactions are done through the digital payment application. So this is a common local currency, so people can obtain it only by converting unit of euros into unit of local currency, and so individual users cannot reconvert their unit of local currency back into euros. So once you convert some unit of local currency, you do not have the choice to spend them within the network of participating businesses. And these businesses are businesses on the local territory and that respect some environmental, social, and economic criteria. So that's why we characterize them as an environmental complementary currency. And so local businesses, once they receive payments in unit of local currency, have to pay some fees if they want to convert the unit of local currency into euros. So these businesses are incentivized to reuse the currency unit within the local territory. So this case is interesting compared to the previous one because it does not provide any financial incentive to participate. In fact, users so the incentive to participate is the fact that when you spend some unit of local currency, you ensure that the currency will circulate within the local territory, or at least businesses will pay some fees to reconvert unit of local currencies, and in most cases, these fees enable to fund some local and ecological projects. And so we do not have any financial incentives to participate, but because we do not have financial incentive to participate, these schemes tend to attract a lower audience, and users have specific characteristics that explain why they use the currency, while most individuals do not use the currency. So I will present this research tomorrow, but in fact, most users convert into a local currency unit only the amount of local currency they are confident to spend within the network of participating businesses. So, for instance, most users report that they already spent 20 euros in local businesses that accept payment in local currency. So they convert 20 euros into 20 units of local currency so that they are sure that they will manage to spend this amount as they already spent it before using the local currency. So in fact, most users experience symbolic rather than structural change. The means of payment change, but not the consumption patterns that are associated with this transaction. Under some condition, this currency may generate a structural effect. So, for instance, we have some users that receive a part of their wage in unit of local currency. And so most of them receive more units than the amount they would have voluntarily converted. And so they have to find new ways to spend their unit of local currencies as they cannot convert into euros the part of their wage, the share of their wage they receive in unit of local currency. So then we saw that on the one hand, we have a rewarding scheme that attract a lot of users, but in fact, they may generate some rebound effect. On the other hand, we have some local currency that attract already environmentally engaged users, but that may generate some changes. But one interesting case is the Kim Goer that is combined with the climate bonus. So that's an hybrid case between the complementary local currency and the rewarding scheme. So we saw that when we give some reward, but we do not earmark the money, then it can generate some rebound effect. And here they combine the two logic of the rewarding scheme and of the local currency to give some reward while ensuring limiting the rebound effect. So as Jérôme explained, the Kim Goer is a standard local currency without rewarding scheme at the beginning. So user can convert unit of euros into Kim goers voluntarily. But they made an experiment in which they combined the local currency with the climate bonus, which is a reward scheme. So for every 10 kilograms of CO2 emission avoided, so based on the estimation of the climate bonus, the organization that managed the climate bonus, they can obtain 1 unit of Kim goer. So through this experiment, people can convert voluntarily unit of euros into local currency or obtain reward directly in unit of local currency. And so this is interesting because we know that for each unit of Kim goer emitted as a reward, this allows to avoid 10 kilograms of CO2 emission, and then they calculate that it generates a reduction of more than 10,000 tons of carbon dioxide. But the difficulty is that we do not know if people reduce their CO2 emission because of the reward, or if people would have reduced their emission in every case, and they receive a reward for something they would have done without the reward. Something that can that gives some hints in favor of the fact that the reduction is due to the reward is the fact that we observe similar effects in the case of the MOLA currency. So the MOLA currency is maybe a combination between a local currency and something like the Pila Verde. So people can exchange their organic waste against unit of local currency, but they can spend the local currency only within a specific network of business. But these businesses can then reuse the local currency. So it's intended to circulate more than one time. And so, yes, I think that's maybe a master thesis that show that users tend to increase their shares of local and green consumption when they use this scheme. Okay, so throughout this presentation, we show that we have some key challenges faced by the literature on complementary currencies, and especially on the impact assessment of environmental complementary currencies. So first, we sometimes have difficulties to define the right indicator to measure the impact of local currency, of complementary currency, but it's especially true for local currency. So for instance, local currency targets broad impact, and so some studies find no effect of local currency, but it's maybe not because they generate no effect, but because they target the wrong indicator. One limitation is the fact that we lack data, so counterfactual and longitudinal data, such that we cannot, so if we observe some effect of local currency or environmental complementary currency, we cannot know if the effects are due to the use of the currency or are due to pre-existing differences between users and non-users before the currency use. So, for instance, in the case of the Lyon, some effects, some variation in outcomes that we can consider as effects of the local currency are in fact more determinants of the use of local currency. So what I try to develop in my research to overcome such limitation is to implement a standard difference in difference research design. And so I consider a case of local currency in the Réunion Island, the French island, which is the Tikatsu. Okay, maybe I will conclude. So the Tikatsu will circulate only on a small part on the island. And so the goal is to compare users, so to make a survey with users of the local currency in the part of the island in which the local currency will circulate, with non-users in the white part that will not use the currency, but that would have used the currency if one were available in their territory, so that we are sure that these individuals are comparable. And so, yes, we can use some mixed method approach and personal metabolism approach to overcome the limitation due to the difficulty to define environmental indicators and the lack of longitudinal data. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you Professor Jérôme and Leo for the presentation. And I was just took notes about what you said, but I think from our perspective that are interested in the transition to a more sustainable society and circular society, yes, there are very interesting point about this discussion about social value and economic value, because the proposal here is just to have a social currency or a complementary currency, yes, as a tool to promote this transition, yeah. And also this idea about the presentation of Professor Jérôme that mentioned in details how it's evolving circular social currency and alternative currency, yes. So from our perspective, operations management perspective, it's very interesting to analyze the digitalization also, because it's a process and we have different ways to promote, yes, so this, and also to the grassroots society, yes. So sometimes we have this social complementary currency in different formats, I would say, yeah. And we also have these different drivers, and grassroots society, it's important as a driver to this kind of, and we have been seeing this in more research also. And so a lot of things to discuss, and I hope that your seminar just promote more initiatives for people here to study this kind of subject. It's very important. Thank you very much. And thank you for the audience also.